Okay, thank you for joining everybody. I'm going to hand over to Michael in a minute, who's going to run through the demo of Salesforce CPQ for you. If anyone's got any questions as we go along, please type them in the box and I'll either interrupt Michael or save them from to the end. So over to you, Michael.
Okay, thanks a million, Sarah. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the webinar. So what we're going to do today, we don't have a massive amount of time, so what we'll do is just get straight into the demonstration of CPQ. I'll try to go through as much functionality as possible, so if some of it is not relevant to you, apologies, but obviously we want to see what this platform is capable in its entirety. So without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. So I'm going to go to a recent record here. Oh, let me just try this way. Okie doke. So I'm now on the account. Okay. So for those unfamiliar, CPQ is in fact a native quoting tool built on Salesforce. It was originally a company called Steel Brick, who built the actual application, and then Salesforce acquisitioned it. So because they like the product. So a couple of things you will notice on the account when you install CPQ is that you now have a new quotes object here. Okay, so if you are using the standard quote functionality in Salesforce, that will be retired and it will be replaced with the CPQ quote object. Okay, you'll also notice that you've got contracts as well in your account related list. And again, contracts is actually a native object in Salesforce, but CPQ uses it quite a lot. So you will want that on the page. We also have contracted prices. So you can, we will go into this a bit later, but you can offer specific prices for specific customers on products. So anything that you've agreed with them, you can save those prices and that will get loaded instead of anything in the pricing engine within CPQ. We also will see assets as well. So if you sell any type of hardware or services around installation, etc., you will also need assets in there. Okay, and the main difference being an asset is something that is generally non-recurring versus something that appears on a contract where that's generally a recurring service. Okay, we also have subscriptions. So subscriptions are linked back to contracts as well. So those are the line items related to or recurring line items, I should say, related to a contract. Okay, so those are the kind of main objects within CPQ. So what I'm going to do, we've got our account here. So I'm going to go to a contact and I'm going to create an opportunity. Okay, so I do have a closed one opportunity there, but I'm going to go and create a new one. Okay. Call this CPQ webinar 2. I'm going to set the close date to today. My stage to prospecting. And I'm just going to say that this is a new customer. I'm going to leave pretty much everything else blank at this stage because a lot of the information on our opportunity is informed from the quote itself, the CPQ quote. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that opportunity. And then I will click on a link to go there. Okay. So again, this is quite a slimmed down opportunity just for demonstration purposes. Obviously, within your org, you're going to have a slightly different layout. You will notice immediately on the details page, we do have some information here relating to CPQ. Okay, and what we have is a field called primary quote. So within CPQ, we can obviously have multiple quotes related to a single opportunity. And really what we want is to specify on an opportunity what the primary quote is. So if you think about things like forecasting, sales, pipeline, etc., you don't want to be double counting values by having multiple quotes, let's say, where one isn't marked on as the most likely outcome. So this is always going to be filled with your most likely outcome quote. Okay. We also have create contracted prices. So again, if you quote somebody and they agree to go ahead with the sale and at particular prices, we can actually create contracted pricing for that particular the particular products within that quote to offer to a customer. Okay, and CPQ will then acknowledge that going forward, that instead of selling, Xenogenics a particular license for 20 per user per month, going forward it will always load 15 because that's the agreed contracted price. Okay. We also have some other information related to CPQ here, such as the renewed contract or the amended contract that's in play at the moment. But again, we'll take a look at that in a little while. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and create a new quote, a new CPQ quote. So immediately, it is asking me for start date, end date, subscription term, who's the primary contact, i.e. who are we quoting in this instance, and then who is the sales rep related to this quotation. So what we've done, we've just pre-filled some information here. I'll set the start date as today. The end date is going to be our start date plus subscription term. So that's defaulted in there. And then we've also got a default for 12 on the subscription term. And we're going to pick a primary contact. So I'm going to pick Mike McIntyre here as a person that I'm sending this particular quote to. Okay. And again, while these are preloaded, you generally want to preload the most likely scenario that you usually quote. Okay. But for the moment, let's go with this. And I'm just going to go ahead and save. Okay, so I could click on that link and go directly to the quote and start adding products, but I just wanted to point out over here on the right some differences as well that you might not be seeing at the moment in your org. So we can see that it's now created a quote record here in my related list. Okay, I've still got my opportunity products, but I'm not actually going to affect those from here. I'm gonna affect them from the quote, and we'll see that as well. We've got a quote documents related list. So any documents we generate, such as a proposal document, a contract document, just a standard quote document, of course, or pro forma invoice. We can do all of that from CPQ, and we will be able to see those documents generated here within the opportunity. Okay. We also have the orders object. So there is a mechanism in CPQ to allow you to generate orders from from a quote or a closed opportunity. Again, we'll take a look at it later. And then the more important ones here, we've got contract and renewal contracts as well. Okay, so an opportunity may be linked directly to a contract or a renewal contract, and we will go and generate those in just a short while. So I'm just going to go and click on my quote record here now. Okay, I'm very similar to any object or record in Salesforce. We've got our kind of quote process, let's say, which is slightly different to our opportunity process. Okay, we've got some quick links here at the top, so we can see our various objects or related objects, and then we've got our main detail of the quote here as well, and then over on the right, we have some related information as well. Okay, so at the top here, you'll notice we have approval detail. So we can see things like, is there approval level associated to the quote? What's the average customer discount? What's the total customer discount? Do we need discount approval, solution approval? Have the terms been modified, and so on? Okay, and we'll interact with this as we proceed. Within the main detail here, we can see that CPQ has generated a quote number automatically. You can see that this quote is now marked as primary. We can see the type is quote, the status is draft, when it expires, and any auto renewal notice period, okay, which is automatically set to 30 days in this instance. On the right, we've got our usual lookups. So opportunity, we're looking up to the opportunity we're quoting from. Our account, if you work with partners or resellers, you may need to have an end user associated with a quote. We can see the primary contact that we chose and the sales rep and or owner of this particular quotation. Okay. Particularly useful if you are if you have reps who sometimes quote for other people and you need to measure commissions. Okay. Then some of the figures that we can pull back from CPQ. So we can look at recurring revenue associated to a contract, the first year contract value. We can see the annual contract value, one-off revenue, and obviously the TCV or net amount of the entire quote or contract. Okay. A little bit further down, some contract information. So again, we've got our start and end dates pre-populated. We've got our subscription term at 12. We're saying that any renewals that come from this quotation, the default is to have them as 12 months. And then we're also applying a default renewal uplift of 3.5% on any contract generated from this particular sale. Okay. There are some other settings here. I won't go into too much detail there. And then scrolling down a little bit more as well, we can see again things like total customer discount amount, additional discount amount, average customer discount, average partner discount, and then again approval level. Okay. Okay, so what we need to do at this point, we want to go now and actually add some products to this quotation. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this Edit Lines button up here. And this is going to bring me into the pricing and configuration engine in CPQ. So I'm just going to choose the standard price book. Okay, and we can see some of the main detail fields have been exposed here. So we can see our start date, our end date, our subscription term, and we've got a field here that every salesperson loves, target discount amount. I will demonstrate that as well to you. So what I want to do is add some products. So I'll click on my Add Products button, and I can see that my products in this case, at least, are grouped by product family, okay? And there is flexibility to group them however you choose. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the bundle product family. I'm going to select fiber broadband, okay? So the example is done in the case of a telecommunications company, for instance, okay, who sells broadband. So I'm going to choose this particular product and I'm going to hit select. Okay, so what CPQ allows you to do from a configure point of view is create these bundles, okay? Now, it's not really to be confused with the, how you would think of a bundle whereby I buy this bundle and I get all 6 products at this price, okay? Actually, you can do that, but this also allows you to group products together to kind of minimize your product set and make it easier for a user to actually cycle through what they may need to complete a sale. And it also allows you to then validate what they're adding to a quote as well. So, if you have any issues around the fact that people are mis-selling or including items where they shouldn't be, CPQ can really negate that for you, okay? So let's just take a look at the configurator here. So I have added the fiber broadband product, okay? And it's effectively saying these are all the other options that I could include or potentially upsell on within the product set, okay? So you'll notice straight away that I've got alternative service here, and this is the fiber unlimited broadband upsell. And this is telling me that, to go with this, it's basically an additional 20 per month, okay, because our services are billed monthly, okay. And again, with additional services that I can add on IP addresses, web traffic management software, and again, it's just telling me what the upsell price is here. So as a salesperson, it's very easy for me to see on one page while I'm having a discussion with a customer, you know, what they could be adding. It's prompting me to actually mention these things. And I can also tell them very quickly what the additional cost is to them, okay? So what I'm going to do, you will notice that there's a couple of options grayed out here. So this goes back to validating configurations, if you like, or validating what you're selling as a salesperson, okay? So we notice that the Web Traffic Management Pro and the 15-day install are currently grayed out. So if I were to go and select the upsell and I was to go with the unlimited broadband, you can now see that that swaps out. So basically what we're saying is if you want to go with this service, you're going to have to select the Web Management Pro, and we now can offer you 15-day installation as well, okay? So again, you're validating, you're prompting for more upsell to the salesperson, and you're also adding you know, a value add to the customer by offering them a slightly better service as well to take the upsell. Okay, so you're giving the sales guy reasons to go and kind of push that additional service. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to keep the fiber broadband. I'm going to add some additional IPs. I'm going to go with the web management here. I also want to add some hardware to the sale, and I'm going to select the 30-day installation. Okay. Now I know the customer is interested in kind of 20 phones, and they also need. I'll do it on the next page, but they need additional IP addresses as well. Okay. So at this point, I've got my configuration, and I want to go and save that back to the quotation. Okay, so that brings me back to the line editor here. Okay, so I can see all of the products I've chosen loaded up here. Okay, let me just show you within the drawer, I can expose additional information. So at the moment I can see product code, product name, what's the quantity they're buying, what the list unit price is, any additional discount assigned. We have a discount alert to notify when you're going over certain thresholds. And then we also have our net unit price and net total. But we can also expose additional information here within a quote line drawer, okay? And what I'm going to do, actually, the customer has told me that in fact they've got 3 sites that need to be they need install on. So I'm actually going to just update the quantity, but I'm also going to update the description. I'm going to say installation for sorry. Okay, and I'm going to add in some additional context as to where these installations are actually taking place. Okay, and again, this can be pulled through onto any documentation. So for instance, if I'm sending out a quote, I can say, you know, fiber or hardware installation, quantity 3, and you know, give them context that we know, okay, this is where those installations are going to take place. That could also include addresses or, you know, whatever you need it to, essentially. Okay. Another thing to point out within the line editor here, there are different pricing methods. Okay, so we can see that this particular fiber broadband product, it's a list price method. Okay, which means that we have a price for it within the price book. Okay, and if we look at our net unit price and our net total, based on the subscription term, it's already multiplied out the value. Okay, so we can very easily see what our, you know, annual contract value is and what our total contract value is within this screen, so that we can offer that information to the customer. Okay. Further on pricing methods. So if I go to this product, because you'll notice that it actually has a 0 net total. In some cases, I may have a product that I need to go and get a price from a third party for, or it simply may be a product that there's a cost to us and we need to add a markup to it. Okay, so in either example, you can actually do that within CPQ. So let's just say that this particular item costs us 50 per unit, and we typically put on a markup of anywhere between 10 and 15%, let's say. So we'll put on 15%. So we can see that CPQ has now worked out that the net total is 1,150 for this. Okay, and it's also told us that our gross profit amount is £150 on the sale of those handsets. Okay, so it's a piece of hardware, effectively. If you have an instance where, well, if you're lucky enough, I should say, to have a list from a supplier where they give you a kind of a static unit cost, well then, you know, again, all of this can be loaded in the same method as a kind of a list price product. You know, we can load in your standard unit cost and apply a standard markup as well, so that this process of entering this data is not actually needed. But it's flexible enough, obviously, to allow you to do both of those, which is the key point there. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do now is, you know, customers like options, right? So what I'm going to do is just add a group to this, and I'm going to call this Broadband, including hardware. Okay, and then I'm going to add another group, but I'm just going to clone this one just to make the process a little bit quicker for me. And I'm just going to take this out and call it Broadband only. And then I'm just going to go in and reconfigure this line. So I'm effectively going back into my bundle here. I'm just going to take out the hardware because actually I don't want it anymore. I'm just going to save that. Okay. Okay, so I now have my two options that I'm going to offer to my customer. Okay, now they've actually only asked me for the following products. They didn't really want the hardware, but at the moment we're trying to push hardware as well with every sale. But what I want to do, I want to exclude this from the total cost of the quote. So I'm just going to hit optional on this and hit calculate. And I'll see that the quote total, or TCV, has actually reduced down to the option that I have here, okay, within the quote. So effectively what I'm able to do now is I can display again on a quote document or a proposal, I can display different options to a customer, but you know, not affect my pipeline, and also generate what the total contract value is for that particular customer as well within the document. Okay. So the customer has actually come back and said, you know what, thanks for the hardware quote as well, but actually I'm just interested in the services. So what we'll do, we will just delete this group out. And I'm just going to hit ungroup here as well. So we are back to what we actually know we want, okay, or what the customer wants at this point, okay. So it's one broadband connection, an additional IP address, some basic software, and 3 installations. So let's actually just put that back to one. Okay. Rightio. So the target customer amount field lets us get to a specific price for this service, okay? So the customer, after a bit of haggling, has said, hey, you know what, I'll go ahead with this, but I need you to come down to about 620 for me. So the user can enter 620 in here, and it will go ahead and reduce the quote total. And what it does, it actually cycles through each line item and discounts it accordingly. Okay, and you can also see now that we have a discount alert here flagged because we've potentially gone over a certain threshold of discount. Okay, so what I'll do at this point, I will just go ahead and save that. Okay. So we can see here now, within our quote, we've got an annual contract value of 520.21. We've got one-off revenue of 99.79. That's our total contract value. And again, we can see our recurring revenue amount and our first year contract value. So that will be a total if it were multi-year. Okay. And if we look over on the right here, we can actually see our approval details. So we can see the approval level required is actually sales manager approval. We can see that discount approval is checked as well. We also have other levels of approval. So again, solution approval and modified terms. So let's modify the terms to get that included in the approval process at the moment. So again, the customer came back and said, you know what, you know, on a renewal uplift, I don't really want to pay 3.5% the next time we renew. So can we negotiate there? Can we do something on it? So you've gone ahead and agreed to 1%, or at least you said we'll try that first and see if we can get approval on it. So let's just go ahead and save that. And then what I want to be able to do is just amend the quote terms as well. So I want to say, okay, when I send you the quote, it's going to have to say 1% on it. So just want to go and edit a quote term here. Okay. Now, these terms can be pulled in based on certain criteria within a quote. If you're a company who has multiple subsidiaries, for instance, and you're all using the same Salesforce, same CPQ, you can have different quote terms for each subsidiary, you know, and we would just pull in that quote term depending. And, you know, again, you may not even use quote terms. For instance, you may just link to a website, for instance, that holds your terms of service. But again, it's just to show you that you can manage that in here from an audit point of view. Okay. Oh, I don't think I saved that. Apologies. So I can go ahead and adjust that to say renewal uplift will be applied at 1%. Okay. See that you know, part of this approval now includes modified terms, you know, within the contract. I can also see here that I've got a modified quote term linked back to my quote. Okay, and if I were to go and view that, I can see here what's actually been changed to. I can see that it's linked back to the standard term and my quote, and I can also see the original term here. So, you know, if I'm an approver, I can quite easily see here, okay, well, we've actually reduced that down to 1%. Okay. So I'll just go back to the quotation. And what I'll go and do is submit this for approval to my manager. Okay. So okay, and at this point you want to be given pretty good reason typically, but especially at that level. So that has now gone to in review. Okay, and if I look at the approval history here, I can see that it's gone to my my manager here, Ross. Okay, on this occasion, I'm going to reject this just to show you what actually happens. But typically, you would have an email that goes out to the manager at this point and says this has been submitted for approval. You can include as much of this approval detail as you want within the email, and the manager could then reply with approve or reject to the email. Or if they wanted to come in and view the information, they can obviously see it on the approval history, but also it's very easy for them to then determine, okay, well, I can see what the average customer discount is. I know that it is in fact discount and modified terms that I'm approving. So I can take a look at this quote term and just see what's been changed. Okay, and you can really flag that in any number of ways. This is just an example. It's really about how you would like to see it, and that's what you would kind of set up in the system. Okay, so let's go ahead and just reject that. Okay, go ahead and reject that. Okay, and we can see our status is now rejected, and we can see in our approval history that it was rejected by Ross, and his comments basically as to why that's the case. Okay, so what I might do now as a salesperson, I would go in and update it back to, let's say, 2%. I could then modify my quote term as well to reflect that if I wanted to do it that way, and I could kind of send out my contract, or in fact I could submit it for approval again. So let me just do that again. Okay, and I do get asked this a lot, but you don't actually have to enter any information there if you don't want to. You would just expect if some level of justification, I would imagine, if you're going to discount. So we can now see that the approval level, the approval history, it's gone in again, it's pending, it's with Ross, and our quote is back to in review. So I'm just going to go ahead and approve it this time. Okay, and we can see that our quote is now at an approved stage. Okay, so what I can do at this point, again, CPQ does hold various documents that you can build into it. They are boiler template, I would just mention, and they can be customized quite a lot to look quite nice. So, dynamically changing them is not an option, unfortunately, when you're in the viewers. Okay, so preview document will actually just load up the document for you to see it. Obviously, you choose which one first, and then generate, which is very similar, allows you to do something a bit more, whereas actually sending the document out. Well, preview is very like this. Well, on the left, we can actually choose which template we would want to generate. We can add some additional documents if we so wish, and we can change the order of said documents to display them in the generation how we choose. And then we can also go ahead and preview within this screen as well if we want. So I'm just going to preview this very quickly. It's a very basic document, but again, it can you can customize these to look very glossy. Okay, so really we're just pulling in quote and quote line information at this point onto this quotation. But again, that could be a contract, pro forma invoice, whatever you need it to be essentially. And you can see our quote terms have come through, I haven't obviously updated it there, but we can obviously validate that as well if needs be. Okay, and we've got our signature options. So once I'm happy with that, I can do a number of things. I can actually save the document back to my quote for, to send at a later date, or maybe I'm exporting it or whatever I need to do. I could save and email it. So again, save it back to the quote and send a copy to the customer, okay, as an attachment. I can also send with DocuSign. So DocuSign has a native integration with CPQ, so they provide their own package that you install, and you can literally click that button and get it to go out in an envelope. If you're familiar with DocuSign for electronic signature, that will obviously come back and update your quote as well to say that it's contract complete as well. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit save at the moment. We've got a generic update happening here whereby it's going to go to presented, but again, that's kind of on the assumption that I've sent it via email. So again, whatever your process may be, your preferred process may be there, we can obviously build that in. Okay. Rightio, so I have gone ahead and generated the document. We're going to have to assume that the customer has accepted that. They're happy to go ahead. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit accepted here. Oh, in fact, I'm not going to update it down here. Okay. So just before we head back to the opportunity, so if your company kind of operates in we've got a new business team and we've got an existing business team who handle amendments and renewals, for the most part, that's pretty much it for the new business guys. They won't interact with contracts other than to see what customer may already have with you as a company, the services I mean, or the assets. So that's kind of where their job would stop. So it's really around validating for them, because they tend to be newer guys and girls that are on the team, so they may not know the product set as well. So it's really around kind of validating for them what they can and can't buy, making sure the proper approvals are in place, and obviously the correct terms, etc., that you may have to adhere to, okay, and really enforce and process. So if we take a look at the opportunity now, because we've accepted the quote, we can see that the stage on the opportunity is updated to closed won. Okay. And we can also see that we've got our primary quote here. And we can also see that we've actually gone ahead and contracted this opportunity. Okay, so if I scroll down on the right, and again, we've got our accepted quote there. We've got our products that have been pulled over from the quote itself. We've got the quote document that we actually went and generated. And we also have a contract that we've generated as well. Okay, and we'll take a look at the contract now in a second. But what we can also do, if your company uses orders, or if you'd like to consider using orders, CPQ also handles that. So you can see there is an order checkbox here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and check that. This can be done at the same time as contracting, before contracting, or after contracting, which I'm doing right now. But again, it really boils down to your process, whether you have a process that needs to run off the back of an order, such as order fulfillment, provisioning of services, etc., and whether your process depends on the fulfillment, etc., to actually then process a contract. Okay, so it's really about kind of mapping that out and understanding what the flow of data should be there. Okay, I'm just going to click on the order quickly. £20. We can see all of its component parts. Over on the right, we can see the contract that's been generated on the opportunity. But again, as I say, you could have this order or in fact multiple orders created from a single opportunity, and you could contract from that stage rather than actually at the opportunity stage. The reason I've got an order created here is because we've actually gone and created a case for the provisioning of the broadband for that company. So there is a whole after sales kind of process that needs to happen in order to get that broadband live for that customer. So that gets sent over to the customer support / provisioning team via a case. Okay. But what we'll do, we will go and take a look at the contract. Okay, so when we're thinking about existing business, i.e. as renewals of contracts, when we're thinking about all those kind of things, we really start that process from here, okay, from the actual contract record. So, sorry, 1 second. Andrew. In the event that the quote is being sent to a prospect customer, sorry, we have a question from Andrew. Can the quote be modified to include the customer's objective or needs, a statement of benefits of what is being offered, and testimonial quotes letters from previous customers? Yeah, the answer is yes. I'll just kind of very quickly touch on that. So typically, if I just go back to the quote, if you take a look here, I've got a section called proposal detail. Okay, at the moment, it just has a summary of your requirements. Okay, so I can have a bunch of rich text fields here, and I can go ahead and write out what you're talking about there. Let's say summary requirements, what the benefits are, etc. And I can merge that onto the template document. If I have those merge fields on the template. I mean, it's something we actually, it's a requirement we get all the time. So absolutely yes. If you needed to then attach supporting documents, for instance, so that covers, let's say, injecting data from the quote in, that a salesperson might want to type up. But I can also include documents up here as well that I want to send out to a customer. So that would be any additional materials yet that I would want to attach to send out to the customer. Does that answer the question? If you can just chat and let me know. Great. Is it possible to show an example, please? I don't have an example built in just now, no, but can certainly show you an example maybe on a follow-up call or something like that. Is that okay? Okay, perfect. Rightio. So let us go back to the contract. Okay, so we've got the main contract detail here. Okay, and then on the right, we can see all of the subscriptions that were purchased by the customer that are linked to this particular contract. Okay, we also have two related lists related to opportunities. So we've got amendment opportunities. So again, any opportunities that are created mid-term. Okay, so this contract is 12 months. If the customer comes to me and says, I want to buy an additional item from you related to this particular contract, and I want to co-term it onto this particular contract, that would be an amendment opportunity. Okay, and we'll create one of those now in a minute. I can also do a renewal opportunity, and we've got multiple options there, really. You've got two boxes here that are called renewal forecast and renewal quoted. Okay, if I just want to create the opportunity, I can have it check renewal forecasted on creation of a contract. If I want to create the opportunity and the CPQ quote, I would check both of these boxes. Now, really the thing most people want to know is, if I'm making amendments to this particular contract throughout its life cycle, are they getting calculated back onto the renewal opportunity? So the answer would be, if you just renewal forecast, the value of the opportunity will keep increasing every time you do an amendment to a contract, or decreasing in some cases, of course. So that's how that particular one would work. However, if you renew quoted, it does not. Okay, so some people just want to see the value, you know, the kind of worst case value, and others want to see, you know, that renewal opportunity value rise as amendments are made. Okay, we can also see on the right we have assets as well relating to the parent account. So you can see that we've created an asset here for the installation. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to a different contract so that we can see co-terming. This one. Okay, so we can see this contract started on 4th of the 11th. Okay, pretty much the same services that were ordered. We can see our renewal opportunity here as well. Okay, and I would just point out quickly that if we just open this original quote, it was for a value which will show on the contract. The value was 750.24. And if we look at the renewal opportunity related to that quote, we will see that it's, so what it's done, it's applied an uplift, a renewal uplift. It's applied that to the actual renewal opportunity at time of creation. Okay. So what we will do, we'll just go in and amend this particular contract. I think we have another question here. Oh, sure thing, Andrew, no problem. Okay, so let's go in and amend this particular contract. So if I just click amend, what CPQ now does, and this is one of the great things about it, it kind of manages the whole back-end process for you. It's actually going and creating an amendment opportunity and an amendment quotation as well. So you don't have to rely on the user to actually do that. So what it's doing, it's going to load up the subscriptions within that contract that need amending. Okay, it's just going to take a second or two. Are there any questions, Sarah, at all?
No, nothing at the moment. You've answered everything that's been asked so far. Okay,
perfect. Okie doke. So we can see here within this amendment, okay, that the quote total is 0 at the moment. That's because we haven't actually changed anything within the current subscriptions. Okay, you'll notice that our start date has been brought up to the 12th of the 3rd. Our end date obviously stays the same because what we're doing here is co-terming. Okay, so I'm just going to add an extra broadband line here. And we can see that our net total is now 48569. So that's the original value co-termed to this specific date. And if I update the start date, I can see that my, to the future, of course, I can see that my quote value is just going down. So the customer actually doesn't want this implemented until the 1st of April. So my quote total is, again, co-terming the value based on the contract end date. And that can go down to monthly and daily co-terming. Okay, so it can consider individual days or just months. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to save that. I do appreciate just that we haven't got that much time. There are variants of that, contract extensions, etc. We do have a kind of a recommended position on that, but happy to discuss that individually at a later date if you want to see more on the platform. We can see that our quote has been created for amendment for contract. Okay, and if I just click the opportunity, amount, we've got our amended product, so it's just a single single product for quantity 1 with our total sales price for that co-termed item. If I now go through that same kind of process, it's also an upgrade. You'll see it's marked as an upgrade. If I go through the contracted process here and I go and save that, and again, I'm just doing it a bit quicker because we are running out of time. I can also see, sorry, that the opportunity is linked to our amended contract. So if I go and click on that amended contract, I can, let me just refresh the page. Lightning does that sometimes. Okay, I can see my amended contract here. And obviously you can have, as many amended contracts as necessary. If you have a 36 or more month contract, you may amend it on a number of occasions. I can also see that in my subscriptions that I've now got an additional subscription with a different start and end date. Okay, I can see it's worked out my prorate multiplier here. Okay. So again, we're just kind of adding on to the contract in this method, okay, rather than just creating a brand new opportunity and not having things linked together. We're just actually editing the existing contract all the time in this scenario. Now, if you wanted to extend or a service that had was starting today and date beyond this particular contract, again, there are options there. You can obviously early renew something. You can create a brand new contract for that, or you can extend this contract. But ultimately you want to do what the cleanest process is, and based on how your kind of business works, obviously we would recommend that. So go back to my opportunity. I can now see that my renewal opportunity here, in fact, sorry, is updated. So the amount is actually updated on that for me. Okay, and the renewal opportunities would just sit in your pipeline like anything else. You could have a specific report that looks specifically at your renewal opportunities or all renewal opportunities. And if you've got a separate renewal team, they can obviously go in and interact with these particular opportunities. Okay. Also, if you're considering things like commissions, etc., a lot of customers want to be able to measure, well, what is my upsell amount versus renewal amount, so that they can work out commissions. That's all absolutely 100% possible. We do it all the time. So again, if you want something a bit more specific to your business, please do reach out to us and we can set that up. I'll just go into the renewal quote here again. Oh, in fact, I've got it open here. And what I'm going to do is just check this renewal quoted checkbox and hit save. Okay, so if I were on a renewals team, or even if I am my sales role is all encompassing, this is effectively what I would do. I would go in and renew quote the contract when the time came around to actually renew this opportunity. And this often just takes 30 or so seconds. My renewal quote. So I can then go ahead and go through, a standard process, an auto renewal process, for instance, that I need to go through. I can, I can automate that into the system. Again, based on, auto renewal notice period, for instance, if there was no notice given, I could just auto renew this. Again, you can automate that to happen. So we could just automatically accept the quote, close out the opportunity and contract it again. Again, all based on your process, but I would just go through the same motions. Sorry, apologies. I would accept that and close out that amendment, or sorry, that renewal opportunity. And effectively all that happens is the whole process just continues in a circle until such time as the customer either cancels or doesn't, basically. Are there any questions on that? If anyone would like some questions answered, we've got about 5 minutes.
No, we don't seem to have any questions, Michael. Nothing's come in.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that is CPQ in a very quick demonstration over 1 hour. Again, if you want to see more, you know, on CPQ, you want to see something a bit more tailored or have specific requirements that you need to know, you know, that CPQ will cover them. Please do feed them back to us, and we can set up one-to-ones. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much, Michael. I'll send out an email later today with the recording of the webinar in case you want to review it again, and also with all of our contact details and how you can get back in touch with us if you want to hear more. Okay, thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.